How you doing, guys? Welcome into Rover Sports here, and it is Tuesday. Josh McDaniels rejects the Indianapolis Colts. After 2 months, he held the Indianapolis franchise hostage for 2 months. It's funny because, there was actually a report on Bleacher Report that when I said that the Giants and the Cardinals should pass by Josh McDaniels because he's kind of a sour prick, because he's temperamental, because he's an unpredictable personality. There was this report on Bleacher Report that said how much Josh McDaniels had changed from his time in Denver. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, a lot of Colts fans are actually feeling inferior to maybe New England because, Josh McDaniels left them at the altar. But if you're a Colts fan, you should be relieved that this guy, Josh McDaniels, is not running your franchise. That you are not stuck with a hothead, temperamental guy that has commitment issues and that left you by the altar for 2 months and pretty much halted the entire Colts coaching search. So now they're left in a terrible, terrible predicament. It was really, on the surface, a self-centered move by Josh McDaniels because the Colts could have then used this time, obviously, to look for candidates. And if it's really about his family, that's inexcusable as well. I heard some people say Josh McDaniels, his family wanted to stay in the Boston area. We'll talk to them! You have 2 months to talk to them. The moment the Colts call you up, the moment you do an interview, you call your wife on a telephone. You call her, you probably have her number and say, would you like to move to Indianapolis? Would you like to move to the Midwest? And you talk to your children. And you say, would we like to move to Indianapolis and go to school here to your kids? Do you want to live here? And then you could maybe call back in 48 hours, go through the talking and say, you know what, Chris Ballard, and you know what? Whether it's Irsay, I think it's, whatever, Irsay, I believe. You tell the Colts, you know what, I'm fine. And thank you for the offer. But I'm fine. So let's look at the situations, why the excuses, why Josh McDaniels suddenly backed out of the deal. So the non-sexy stories. Family didn't want to move. Here's another theory, is that somehow we have a false medical report on Andrew Luck's shoulder that was just getting released. Andrew Luck and his shoulder is a huge deal anyway. I was talking to people, and I don't even know if Andrew Luck will be accepted for a second-round pick in this year's draft because of his injury history. So that's something with taking the Colts job. That's why the Tennessee job is more attractive than the Colts job. That is why even the Lions job might even be more attractive than the Colts job. But here's kind of the meatiest, most interesting reason why Josh McDaniels might not have taken the job. And in this case, you can look at Josh McDaniels, and if this is true, you can kind of actually reconcile this decision a little bit. The only way that this makes this excusable from a moral standpoint towards the Colts is if Josh McDaniels somehow found out from Bob Kraft yesterday that the benching of Malcolm Butler, the pouting of the Jimmy Garoppolo trade, that Bill Belichick is going to leave the Patriots in a 2-year window, and that Josh McDaniels will be announced as the next Patriots head coach in 24 to 36 months. That might be the only reason why this is an excusable move for Josh McDaniels to do to the Indianapolis Colts. Let's look at Bill Belichick's mindset. The guy is, I believe, in his early 60s, coached football his whole life, and has had control his whole life. The Jimmy Garoppolo trade now on the surface looks like it might have sent a ripple effect through the entire NFL. Because if you would poll Patriots fans in their heart of hearts, it could have been a Montana to Steve Young transition. And Montana went to Kansas City. Steve Young took over and won championships. We know Robert Kraft and his loyalty to Tom Brady, and he vetoed the move. He vetoed a Tom Brady trade. But looking at how unbelievable Jimmy Garoppolo is, I said that there's no quarterback I'd rather have in the NFL than Jimmy Garoppolo. A young quarterback. Quickest release, calmest personality, special from the neck up. The Patriots out of Eastern Illinois, they hit another jackpot, and they traded away that jackpot. And the Patriots could have had a stranglehold on the NFL for the next 15 years. Matt Patricia leaves New England. A guy that Bill Belichick loves, a guy who had no ego at all, a special personality that is a guy who loves football, and a guy that wouldn't even do interviews with the media. Completely like Ernie Adams, completely a Bill Belichick type of person. So he leaves to now take a head coaching job, and now you're bringing in the defensive coordinator that I'm not a very big fan of in Greg Schiano, that kind of is very salty, very temperamental, kind of like Josh McDaniels. And I didn't want the Vols getting Greg Schiano. I thought that the Vols made a good decision because I looked at Greg Schiano, how he handled the offense at Rutgers, how in Tampa Bay he would do things such as when you're kneeling down, he would rush the kneel down when everybody is standing up to try to injure players, and would justify it by saying we're trying to get fumbles. So that's the type of guy that Greg Schiano is. The type of guy that would rush a team when they're kneeling down, and he's now in New England. The Malcolm Butler non-playing came back to really hurt Bill Belichick when they allowed Furman Thomas, I believe, the Buffalo Bills running back, to accumulate the entire middle of the field in Super Bowl 25. And they pretty much elected to let the running back of the Bills get all those yards, and Jim Kelly couldn't complete a pass. It was really one of the greatest defensive game plans ever. And the more you hear, the more you read into the stories, it wasn't about Malcolm Butler missing a team flight or going out partying at a DJ Khaled party. It was about Eric Rowe got the same amount of snaps as Malcolm Butler. And the Robert Kraft, he probably is looking at the situation right now and the controversy of not playing Malcolm Butler, a guy who won a championship, and he's probably not that happy with Bill Belichick. And this whole thing kind of blew up in Belichick's face, the whole Malcolm Butler benching, the whole Tom Brady, his trainer, taking over for the Patriots. Tom Brady, in a lot of cases, if you read the reports, is now acting like, with this new TB12 book, that he's better than the New England Patriots. The entire defensive personnel is really lacking. Tom Brady, he is about winning games, but now that he's the GOAT, now that everybody respects him, Bill Belichick and a kind of fragile relationship, that is even going almost overboard, to Bill Belichick now hating Tom Brady even more than he once did. So you look at all of this surrounding it, you look at Bill Belichick's age, and there might have been a last-second change with Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick that Josh McDaniels is taking over in a couple of years. And I believe that there's truth to Bill Belichick being really pissed off about Jimmy Garoppolo, and I actually think he's entitled to do that. Because if you simply trade out Tom Brady, I know that Patriots fans would have been really upset that they're trading the greatest player in their franchise's history, but now Bill Belichick has validated Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm going to do this in another video. He's taken the 49ers. They're now the same odds to make the Super Bowl as Sean McVay's team, as the Seattle Seahawks are with Pete Carroll. I think they're 10-1 odds. They're about the 5th odds in the NFC, maybe the 7th of odds. And this is a 5-11 team. But that's the power of Jimmy G, is that you look at Super Bowl odds, and Vegas is pointing to the fact that Jimmy G is incredibly special. I think Jimmy G can win an MVP next year. He was flawless this year. Incredible. And if you're going to pull any person, would you want a 40-year-old quarterback that is unbelievable, that's going to play 4 to 5 more years and maybe win 2 championships? Or would you want Jimmy Garoppolo that's going to play 15 to 20 more years, and that is just incredibly, incredibly special? And that's going to win MVPs. And I look at Jimmy G and knock on wood for health. I think that the guy is possibly the golden child of the NFL, possibly the next big thing, the next messiah of the NFL. So you look at all of these factors. You look at Bill Belichick now. You look at Tom Brady. The relationship that they have was always a business relationship. The not playing of Malcolm Butler. The Tom Brady supporting Malcolm Butler, trashing Bill Belichick. All of these things you need to take into account now when you look at the New England Patriots and just how turbulent the franchise is. Greg Schiano coming in now. The franchise is so turbulent. So many changes are being made. Tom Brady's getting old. Bill Belichick is older. He found his guy. He put in the work. He did the research. He hit a home run with Jimmy Garoppolo. He groomed him. He took all that time. You think an older Bill Belichick wants to go through that again? You think he wants to do this for 15 years? You think he wants to take a risk in the draft now and go through the process of scouting quarterbacks when he knew he had the NFL locked up for the next 20 years or for the next 10 to 15 years? You really think he wants to battle with an owner that rejected a trade that would have secured the franchise for the next 10 to 15 years? And last thing I want to say, Patriots fans or Robert Kraft will probably point to Bill Belichick and will probably point to the Eli Manning benching and make that equivalent to the Tom Brady trade, saying how it was classless. But there's a big difference between Ben McAdoo, a guy who didn't achieve squat, putting in Geno Smith. There's a big difference between Geno Smith and Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think I need to say much more about Geno Smith, the journeyman, a guy that's one of the slowest quarterbacks in the NFL, and Jimmy G. I don't think I need to compare the two guys. Also, you're trading Tom Brady in the offseason. It's not like you're publicly benching Tom Brady in the middle of the season. So for everybody that wants to make it a moral thing, I understand Bob Kraft not wanting to trade Tom Brady, but right now, Bob Kraft, that decision could end up losing Bill Belichick for the next 10 years. That decision, that day, that Monday that we have in December and November, that really changed the landscape of the entire league for pretty much the entire years to come. That was the biggest day in the NFL in years. It's the Jimmy Garoppolo trade, looking back on everything. That is going to be something that Patriots fans, that it really impacted so many people, so many things. But you look at Josh McDaniels, Tony Dungy was completely right to slam Joshua McDaniels, saying how ridiculous it was. Assistants, everybody was going to Indianapolis. Josh McDaniels completely screwed over the Indianapolis Colts, completely screwed over a franchise. Really despicable move, but Colts fans, again, you guys should feel like you dodged a bullet. You dodged the bullet of a guy that in the NFL, the stereotype on Josh McDaniels actually was true. That Josh McDaniels is temperamental, cares all about himself. That Josh McDaniels is a hothead. That Josh McDaniels is mentally unstable. All of those things are true. And today, you, the Indianapolis Colts, should go out and get Kevin O'Connell of the Washington Redskins, or go out and hire away Matt LaFleur and actually just stick it to the Tennessee Titans. You guys look at Todd Wash, but I would look at, honestly, I would really look at Matt LaFleur. And that would be the first call I'd make, is Matthew LaFleur, and Matt LaFleur go from OC to head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I would do that if I was Chris Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts. Alrighty, guys, I needed to get this off my chest. A lot of theories flying around. I think that Josh McDaniels, the Bill Belichick future in New England, so much is in question, and I needed to address it here on this show.